on what's going on, and it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's 1 o'clock and welcome to On the Money, your daily weekday dose of economics, business and consumer news. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour we'll be talking energy bills as wholesale gas prices soar, and also mobile phone roaming charges, which some phone companies are saying will return when Brits visit the European Union. All that plus more coming up on The Money after the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon. Let's get you up to date on GB News at just gone 1 o'clock. The government's sticking with plans to raise national insurance, with the Chancellor Rishi Sunak saying ducking difficult decisions would not be responsible. The Commons leader Jacob Rees-Mogg wants the move to be scrapped, arguing the increase can't be justified as families struggle with surging food and energy costs. From April, national insurance is set to rise by 1.25%. The policy was announced in September to help the NHS during the pandemic and to help fund the cost of social care.
We think it's absolutely right that we do two things. One, clear up the very big backlog of operations and procedures that haven't been able to take place because the NHS has been so remarkably dealing with coronavirus. And two, make sure that we deal with the long-term problem of social care, and we're doing it through a rise in national insurance. That's the decision that we've made. We think we're making an important historic point here.
Survivors and relatives of the British tourists killed during the Tunisia beach terror attack have agreed a settlement with the travel operator TUI. 38 people, including 30 Britons, were killed at a hotel complex when a gunman stormed the beach. TUI agreed the undisclosed figure without admission of liability or fault. A female paramedic has died after a crash between an ambulance and a cement truck. South East Coast Ambulance Service says the collision happened near Tunbridge in Kent last night. 3 members of staff were in the vehicle, with another paramedic suffering serious injuries. A gay rights activist involved in a cake row has been told by the European Court of Human Rights that his case is inadmissible. Gareth Lee claims he was discriminated against when the Christian owners of a bakery refused to make him a cake with the slogan "Support Gay Marriage" on top in 2014. He's now considering whether to bring a fresh court challenge under domestic law. The director of the Evangelical Alliance, Peter Linus, has welcomed the European Court's ruling.
It comes down to, can you force somebody against their political, religious conscience for any reason? Can you force somebody to print a message they disagree with? And the court said, no, you can't. For anybody, you can't force anybody against their will. And the European Court has now agreed with that. And I think that's ultimately a good decision, actually, for everybody. It's never been about Christians against the LGBT community.
Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers are seeking a retrial after a juror told the media he was a victim of sexual abuse. The defence says his disclosures influenced the deliberations and convinced other members of the jury to convict Maxwell after some initially doubted her accusers. She was found guilty of grooming underage girls to then be abused by Jeffrey Epstein last week. Meanwhile, lawyers in Prince Andrew's civil sex abuse case are still waiting for the judge to decide if it will be dismissed. Novak Djokovic's bid to have his visa cancellation overturned will be heard in an Australian court on Monday. The Serbian tennis player, who's hoping to defend his Grand Slam title, was told by border officials he didn't meet the entry rules and that he'd be deported. The country's Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, says his proof of exemption wasn't valid. President Joe Biden is expected to tell Americans on the anniversary of the deadly Capitol riot that his predecessor, Donald Trump, carries singular responsibility for the attack. 4 people died on January the 6th last year, and 1 Capitol police officer died the day after defending Congress. The former strategic advisor to Donald Trump, Sebastian Gorka, told GB News that a second presidential bid from Donald Trump is likely.
He's running. I can assure you that he will be running, and God willing, if we can stop election fraud, he'll be back in the White House for 2024. You're going to see the same old man who came here to break China in the swamp and to fix the swamp. The swamp is full of swamp creatures, of vested interests, of lobby groups. He came here to drain it of those vested interests and to represent Americans. So no, I don't think Donald Trump is changing in his 70s.
The 1921 census has been released and it offers insight, particularly into life at Windsor Castle. King George V's handwritten entry shows he was joined at the time by more than 200 other people, including his wife, Queen Mary, 4 of his 6 children. Over 150 people are listed as servants, and there were 40 visitors at the time of the census, including King Alfonso XIII of Spain. It's 5 minutes past 1. You are right up to date now on GB News. I'll bring you the latest headlines in half an hour. Right now, On the Money with Liam Halligan.
And coming up on the money today, we've got a packed show. Wholesale gas prices have been soaring this week, which is set to push up household energy bills even more. With the energy price cap set to top £2,000 and bills set to reflect that from April, what can the government do to soften the blow for households ahead of local elections in May? As ever on the money, a grown-up discussion with people who really know their stuff. Plus, mobile network Vodafone was due to reintroduce roaming charges across the European Union today, with other providers expected to follow. But at the last moment, Vodafone has decided to delay that move. We'll be examining what that means for you later in the show, around 1:40. And with no less than a quarter of us now finding romance online, virtual courting has never been more popular, but online dating crimes are on the rise, up nearly 400% over the past 5 years. Today, in my latest Startup Britain interview, I'll hear from Elaine Parker, CEO of Safer Date, the first dating site to require ID checks. Elaine will be telling us her concerns for the online dating industry and why she's on a mission to make it safer. And as ever, I want your questions, your opinions, your ideas. Have your energy bills gone up sharply? How do you feel about further, perhaps even steeper price rises? Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. We'll be reading out some of your messages later in the show, so whether you're watching on television or listening on radio, stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan. You're on the money. Now, energy demand soared during 2021 as lockdown measures ended. As a result, wholesale gas prices spiralled, rising more than 6-fold last year. That meant UK household energy bills rose also, but by much less, due to the legal price cap that sets a maximum price consumers must pay. But that cap squeezed some UK energy companies, of course. Forced to buy gas for more than they were allowed to sell it for, more than 25 of our energy suppliers collapsed. Now, earlier this week on Tuesday, as the weather got colder and rows continued over the opening of a new gas pipeline from Russia to Germany, wholesale European prices spiked again, rising by 1/3 in a single day. The benchmark wholesale Dutch gas price increased 32% on Tuesday, with the UK's wholesale gas price no less than 38% up. Again, that increase happened in just one day. Little wonder then that Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng yesterday held crisis talks with the remaining UK energy companies. Consumer prices, already up sharply during 2021, are set to rise much more this coming April, when the household price cap will be adjusted upward. On the 7th of February, just 4 weeks' time, energy regulator Ofgem will announce where that cap will be set for England, Wales and Scotland. Bills are then set to rise from April by an average of over 50%, with the household energy price cap likely to increase from £1,277 to, wait for it, over £2,000 a year for your gas and electricity bill. Now, these whacking bills will land on the nation's collective doormat, just as some pretty hefty tax rises are also kicking in. Chancellor Rishi Sunak has just this morning confirmed his national insurance rise will start in April, along with the end of emergency VAT rates across the hospitality sector and the freezing of basic and higher rate tax thresholds. So we've got an energy bill tax rise double whammy that will see the cost of living soar upwards in April at a time when inflation's on course to hit 6 or even 7%, hammering living standards even more. And after April comes May, and with it local elections, which could well prove tricky for the Tories. If the government doesn't tackle soaring energy bills and the Conservatives are punished by millions of voters, Boris Johnson's leadership could well come into play. And that's our On the Money question today. Dear listeners and viewers, can the government fix soaring UK energy bills? Always grown-up discussions here on The Money, always with people who know their stuff. Today I'm joined by Scott Benton, Conservative MP for Blackpool South. He and his constituents know all about energy poverty, sky-high energy bills. Scott, we're delighted you've joined us. We also have Angela Knight, an On The Money regular, former Treasury Minister, former CEO of Energy UK. She knows her stuff. In the studio, Gavin Rice, Policy Director at the Centre for Social Justice, a think tank developing reforms to tackle poverty and social breakdown. And of course, she's back. We can't keep her away. It's Jasmine Birtles. She's the founder of moneymagpie.com. But before we start this discussion, let's hear from the people who these price, gas, electricity rises will be affecting. Ellie Costello, our South East of England reporter, spoke to locals in the Brentwood area to see what the mood is about energy prices going up this spring.
We are at the end of the gas pipelines after Germany and France, and the French love us. So it's really not a good position to be in.
And we just feel for the young people because my granddaughter, they've got a little family and we feel for them very much. It gets them a little bit more than it does us.
Couldn't care less, to be honest. I feel like everything's going up, so it's just part of life really. Everything always goes up, your wages goes up, cost of living goes up, it's just normal, really.
The cost of living goes up, indeed it does. Well, Ellie also spoke to Neil Charlick from Gillingham Street Angels in Kent, as 30% of food banks could struggle to feed locals.
Have you seen this increase of people coming to the food bank?
In the last few months, it's about 1,000 a month it's going up. So we're currently on about 10,000 people a month, and we're expecting those, once we do our figures, to increase even more.
And there is one story that has really stuck with me that you've told me today about a man that is really suffering and relies on you for help.
We get a lot of people come along to get food. They then talk about other stuff. They want to chat. Sometimes these people don't get out. They don't get to see other people. This guy once, whilst having a chat with one of our workers, said that he has to take his curtains down when it's cold and wrap himself in his curtains. That just shouldn't be happening in this day and age. I mean, we've given the guy blankets and pillows and more stuff to keep him warm, but it's disgraceful. It's happening to people.
Mm.
Let's go first to Scott Benton, Tory MP up there in Blackpool. Scott, you'll know well that Blackpool is one of the poorer parts of the UK. Of course, a wonderful place to visit, as I have many times. Tell me how your constituents will feel and how and if your constituents will cope if we see that energy price cap for households rising from where it currently is, already sharply up over the last year, around 1,300 quid, to £2,000 a year.
Good afternoon, Liam. My constituents are facing unprecedented pressure on their household budget. So you've already mentioned the planned rises in national insurance. No doubt council tax will go up again. Practically every consumer good and food will be rising as well. So the last thing people want at the moment is a potential £600 rise in their annual energy bills from April when that cap is reassessed. My constituents are among some of the poorest people in England, and simply they cannot cope with this pressure on our budget. So my message to the government is clear. I think we have to do far more for families in this position, and in my opinion there's two obvious things we can do at present. Not just the 5% on VAT on energy bills, which should be scrapped immediately, but also around 25% of consumer energy bills which go on so-called green levies. I think the government seriously need to look at scrapping those as well, because if we're not careful, MPs like myself are going to be to justify a lack of government action when people are seeing their household budgets and bills rise by so much.
Angela Knight, let's go to you now. We've just heard from Scott Benton. He's a shiny new Tory MP, with all due respect to him, in Blackpool South, not traditional Tory territory. He is one of those people who smashed Labour's red wall. Boris Johnson needs seats like Blackpool South if he's going to maintain his majority. Surely the government has to do something.
Yes, I think it does, actually. And of course, I come from a red wall area, as it were, which is unfortunately still a red wall, and that is Sheffield. So I understand exactly both what Scott is saying, but also, the constituency and the people that he is representing. I think there's a number of things. I mean, personally, I would leave VAT, but, that's 5%. We need to look at some of the big numbers. The environmental levies that sit on the bill have increased very substantially, and removal of them would indeed cause a significant benefit in the sense that it possibly takes 20-25% off the bill. I think that if I was still in government, my first target would be to do the right thing for the poorer end of society. It might mean that I increase some of the current benefits, the warm home discount, for example. There's also a winter fuel allowance. I'd have to extend them beyond, the normal normal point at which they end. But there's something there that I think should be done and could be delivered quickly because there is a mechanism. The second thing we've mentioned is the green taxes. I do think they need on the long term to be paid a different way. I think temporarily we could suspend them whilst we get through a situation in which the wholesale market is just all over the place. As you said, Liam, in your introduction, the gas prices are rising daily. We know that Russia's putting a restriction on Eastern Europe and also actually starting to sell more of their gas even further east towards China. So we've got a problem with that wholesale market, which is something that no one has seen. The third thing I think I would look at is some form of soft loan arrangement to those suppliers who are in a good, strong financial situation. That is, they've managed their businesses the right way. They're not like so many of those that have already gone bust, who did not take out long-term contracts. We're out there who did all the right things. This soft loan process I would use for the purposes of making the energy price increases gradual for the rest of the population, because we're all going to be impacted. So differentially, properly assist those at the lower end, but look more broadly. And the last group that I would like to bring into the discussion are those who pull the gas out of the North Sea, from which we still get about 40%. And of course, our other major contract is with Norway, because whilst we, the consumer, is disproportionately paying or about to pay a high price, so, it's disadvantageous, of course. So those who are pulling the gas out of the ground, they're getting a benefit from the high price.
Sure.
There needs to be some sort of balancing. I appreciate that sounds terribly statist and interventionist, but we are in an extraordinary situation with energy, just like actually we've been in an extraordinary situation with pandemic.
We are in an extraordinary situation, aren't we, Gavin? I know CSJ focuses on anti-poverty initiatives. That's what the think tank is all about. But you'll also be aware of the corporate implications. There's no price cap for corporates, for the manufacturers, for the steel makers, for the car makers, all for the hospitality industry, for pubs, restaurants, all of whom use huge amounts of energy. This is a political crisis, isn't it? The government, if it's going to influence where this price cap is, has to make its move by the 7th of February in order to stop bills going to the moon for ordinary men and women, for ordinary households in April, just before those local elections.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And I think it's also completely clear that we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. We've got inflation sitting at approximately 6% now. That's obviously eating into people's incomes and eroding their savings as well. We've also had things such as universal credit being taken back down to the level it was before the pandemic.
Again, harming those most vulnerable households.
That's absolutely right, and that's going to affect the most vulnerable most severely. But, of course, because of inflation, that's actually now gone back down to a level lower than it was in real terms pre-pandemic. But we also know that, according to YouGov, 70% of lower-income households say that they would not be able to sustain an increase to their monthly bills of even £50. Well, if their energy bills are going up to £2,000 a year, then that's about...
From around 1,300, that's where the cap is. These are maximum amounts. Doesn't mean you're going to be charged that. That's the most you can be charged.
That's right, but nevertheless, the average increase to household energy bills is going to be far beyond what even the average, let alone lower-income households could possibly managed. So it was very disappointing to see Boris Johnson yesterday rule out removing the VAT.
Didn't he? At the Downing Street press briefing, that's right.
Yes, that's right. But I also think Angela is right to say that the VAT is actually small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. Suspending that would send the right signals. But by far the biggest component when it comes to energy costs is those environmental levies, which are charged on businesses, as you say, including energy suppliers, which then get passed on to the consumer. And that constitutes about 25% of your monthly energy bill. And that arises not from what's going on in the global economy, but from government policy. Well, that's a lever that the government could pull immediately in order to alleviate this crisis. 25%, that's a fairly hefty chunk that they could be stepping in to remove if they wanted to. But unfortunately, that conflicts with their sort of ideological commitment to the current net zero agenda.
And here, Scott Benson, newly minted Tory MP, really pushing back against that green agenda that's so popular in certain parts of Downing Street. Jasmine, we're going to hear from you after the break. We're going to hear from all of you after the break, because we're carrying on this important discussion, as we so often do here on The Money with me, Liam Halligan. We'll keep this discussion going with Scott Benson, Blackpool South MP, Angela Knight, former CEO of Energy UK, Gavin Rice of the Centre for Social Justice, and moneymagpie.com, Jasmine Birtles. Keep your emails coming. We'll be reading some of those shortly. Stay with us. You're on The Money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. A cold one out there today. A wet day for most as well. Rain for the majority, but there is some snow falling over the hills across northern England and Scotland, courtesy of a deep area of low pressure just to the west of Iceland. These weather fronts bringing the moisture, hitting the cold air. It was a frosty start for most of us this morning. And as that wet weather hits the cold air, we will see a continued risk of snow, certainly for the next few hours over the higher routes through the Pennines, across the southern uplands and into the mountains of Scotland further north. There will be some snow on the higher routes, so say the A9, for example. Not lasting too long, but not very pleasant travelling out there. A wet day for most, but staying largely dry across East Anglia and the southeast until this evening. Feeling pretty cold out there, even though later on temperatures could get up to 8 or 9 across the southwest. The rain reaches East Anglia and the southeast before scooting away through the evening, and then showers come into the northwest. Again, mostly rain at low levels, but some heavy snow is likely over relatively small hills across the northwestern quarter of the UK, and likely to be quite icy as well, as temperatures drop close to freezing in towns and cities, a little below in rural areas. But still a potential for heavy snow showers and ice across western Scotland, western parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England in the morning. So just something to be aware of. Some travel disruption certainly possible here. Rain mostly across Wales and southwest England, but some snow mixed in here for a time as well, again chiefly over the hills. Some sunny spells on Friday, but temperatures back closer to just 3 or 4 Celsius for most of us, and feeling colder with the wind, and certainly when the showers come along. Staying pretty showery during Friday evening, so again as temperatures drop sharply, we could see some icy conditions for a time. And then out west, we've got another set of weather fronts which will bring most places a wet spell during Saturday with some strong winds. Sunday does look drier and brighter at this stage.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. It's 1:25. We're discussing soaring wholesale gas prices and what that means for the new Ofgem price cap that will be reset on February the 7th, just a month's time, and what that in turn means for household energy bills from April. Let's turn to Jasmine Birtles, moneymagpie.com. Jasmine, I've talked about the tax hike, energy price hike, double whammy in April. But there's more than that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the national insurance hike, and I really do not understand why they are going ahead with that. Because we've got, as you say, we've got energy prices going up, we've got petrol prices eye-wateringly high, food prices are going up. Yes, some salaries are going up, but not nearly as much as they should be to connect with this. And now they're adding on national insurance. Really, that is something that the government could actually remove. And, and as Angela Knight said, if this is something that it's government policy, they can change that policy, even if it's just short term. And I'm very surprised that they haven't.
Let's go back to Scott Benton, MP for Blackpool South, one of those red wall seats where those energy price hikes, those tax hikes, those cost of living hikes will bite among his constituents. Scott, it strikes me that you and other red wall Tory MPs are really now pushing back against your government on cost of living, on energy price rises, on the green agenda.
I think that's partly true. I mean, to be fair to the government, we are helping working people in a number of different ways. So the national insurance taper rate has just been reduced, for example. People on low incomes are paying less income tax than traditionally they were as well. So there's a realm of providing, but of course that doesn't mean a huge expected increase in energy costs coming forward. And as I think both my alluded to, with obvious things we could, I really would, along with other colleagues, to take the sensible, pragmatic decision on VAT and those green levies, because that would be supported not just by my constituents, but the vast majority of people throughout the UK. I think it's so important that the government show they don't have a tin ear on this issue and they act quickly so people can have a bit of reassurance before April when these huge hikes in energy prices set in.
Gavin Rice, coming back to you, this VAT number, I mean, Angela, as a former Treasury Minister, she's a numerate person, 5% isn't a huge amount, but the symbolism of that, because you can only remove the 5% VAT on energy prices because we're outside the EU. So quite a lot of Brexiteers on the Tory backbenches and indeed on the Labour backbenches and those ex-Labour constituencies might like that, not just for the 5%, but because it's a kind of Brexit bonus.
Yeah, I think that's right. And of course, Boris Johnson himself, when he was campaigning to leave the EU,
he did.
Cited VAT on energy as one of those potential things that we could do differently outside of the European Union. And that is true. Unfortunately, he sort of lapsed into a little bit of civil service ease, sort of saying that, oh, well, offering a VAT cut is, not the most progressive way to spend that money.
And he called it a blunt instrument.
A blunt instrument, that's right, yeah, exactly. The idea being that, the benefit of the cut would not necessarily always go to those that are the very worst off. But you've got to realise that this is actually a crunch for the worst off, but also across the income distribution as well. But I do think we have to come back to that question of the environmental levies, which definitely generate the biggest part of the increase of the cost.
It's about 20-25%, isn't it? That seems to be now it's a figure I've used in columns over the months. We've used it on the money. It's been reasonably well sourced. The government's never acknowledged it's 20-25%. They like to keep it vague. But I think they now can't deny it's that much.
I think that's right. And it is based on analysis of government figures. But even if it's 15%, 20%, 23%, whatever it is, it is pretty chunky. Something that is surprising is that Boris Johnson was clearly elected on a mandate of delivering for many lower income voters who are absolutely core to his electoral coalition that he's assembled in 2019. And what's slightly puzzling is that the government it does seem to be reluctant to acknowledge that there is some tension and some conflict between the need to deliver for those lower income voters and the position that it's committed to on net zero. Those net zero policies are popular until you start costing them, at which point, all of a sudden, people suddenly are less enthusiastic about them.
Lord, give me virtue, but not today. Angela Knight, we've got just a couple of minutes left on this conversation. We'll give the last word to you because I really want to try and understand what's happening in Kwasi Kwarteng's mind now, in Boris Johnson's mind, the business secretary, the Prime Minister, at the forefront of policy making here, not just when it comes to households, but when it comes to manufacturers, other firms, hospitality companies. Unless these energy prices come down, it's going to hit economic growth as well, isn't it?
Yes, I think it will. And, of course, particularly those who use a lot of electricity, and that tends to be our heavy industrial areas, which use that. And for them, the VAT is much more than 5% as well. The reason I say particularly electricity is, of course, the environmental costs all sit on the electricity part of your bill, not on the gas part of your bill. So it's been said earlier, what about business? And you've just raised it, Liam, as well. So we can't just look at one section of the population, and that is the poor end and their domestic requirements, however important they may be. And I'm not dismissing that at all. I do think there needs to be a special fix for them. But there needs to be, this issue needs to be addressed across the economy. And yes, I do think lifting off the green levies is a good idea. It was, in fact, a decision originally of the Labour Party to pay for the wind farms and the solar and all that sort of thing by adding it on the bill. And at the time, gas prices were low. Other governments or successive governments have all followed that, and now we have this big number. Now, because I was the Treasury Minister, I always ask the question, how do we pay for these things? And that is why I said earlier, there are some people in this energy problem who are actually benefiting very significantly indeed. And it's those who sell the wholesale. It's those who pull it out of the ground in the first place. And I think they may have to be part of this debate as well, because we have to accept that there will be changes in the price of energy, but let's do it slowly, let's do it smoothly, let's protect people, let's park the green levies elsewhere, do it holistically, do it properly. That's what I urge the government to do.
This is such an important discussion, Angela. Here on The Money, we will be red hot on this subject in the run-up to May the 7th, as Ofgem sets that crucial energy price cap. Thank you for a wonderful discussion. Angela Knight, the former CEO of Energy UK, former Treasury Minister. Scott Benton, of course, the Tory MP for Blackpool South. Great to have you on the show. Come back again soon. Of course, Gavin Rice from the Centre for Social Justice. Jasmine Birtles, moneymagpie.com. You're going to stay with us for the rest of the show. You're watching On The Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, it's Startup Britain with Elaine Parker. She's the CEO of Safer Date, and she'll be revealing her personal reasons for creating the dating app, which carries out criminal background checks and bans fake profiles. You think they'd all do that, but they don't. It's only her. But first, it's the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, it's 1:33. Let's get you up to date with the latest. The government is sticking with plans to raise national insurance, with the Chancellor Rishi Sunak saying ducking difficult decisions would not be responsible. The Commons leader Jacob Rees-Mogg argued, though, the increase can't be justified as families struggle with surging food and energy costs. From April, national insurance will rise by 1.25% to help fund the NHS and social care. Survivors and relatives of the British tourists killed during the 2015 Tunisia beach terror attack have agreed a settlement with the travel operator TUI. 38 people, including 30 Britons, were killed at a hotel complex when a gunman stormed the beach. TUI agreed the undisclosed figure without admission of liability or fault. A gay rights activist who claims he was discriminated against in a cake baking row has been told by the European Court of Human Rights that his case is inadmissible. Gareth Lee is now considering whether to bring a fresh court challenge under domestic law. He says he's frustrated that the core issues weren't fairly analysed by the European Court. Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers are seeking a retrial after a juror in the case told the media he was the victim of sexual abuse. Well, the defence say his disclosures influenced the deliberations and convinced other members of the jury to convict Maxwell. She was found guilty of grooming underage girls to be abused by Jeffrey Epstein last week. Novak Djokovic's bid to have his visa cancellation overturned will be heard in an Australian court on Monday. The Serbian tennis player, who's hoping to defend his Grand Slam title, was told by border officials he didn't meet entry rules and would be deported. It's 1:35 here on GB News. You're up to date. I'll have more for you on all the top stories at 2 o'clock.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. It's 1:37. Now, if there's something we can all agree on when it comes to Brexit quarrels, and there's not much, free data roaming while we were in the European Union was definitely a good thing. But now we've formally left, some phone networks have said they're reintroducing those extra charges for calls, texts and messaging when you're on the continent. The mighty Vodafone was set to reintroduce roaming charges today, but late yesterday night, at the last possible moment, the UK telecoms giant said it would be delaying, not cancelling, delaying this move. So what's going on? Are roaming charges coming back or not? What does it mean for our phone bills? And why has a company as powerful as Vodafone decided, so to speak, to hold its horses? Well, she's still with me, MissMoneyBackPie.com, Jasmine Birtles, for this conversation. I know you cover phone charging a lot on your website. It's often a big chunk of ordinary people's household bills every month. What do you make of Vodafone's move?
Well, thank goodness, frankly. I mean, honestly, if I were one of these big giants, I'd be holding back because we've got competition. So unless all of them decide together, and that's certainly possible, but unless they all decide to, yes, bring back big roaming charges, then any company that brings them in will lose customers. They just will, because people are going around, they're going abroad, they hate roaming charges, hate them. I mean, as you say,
they're so sneaky.
Yes, and we can, it doesn't matter who you are, we can all agree together. We hate roaming charges. They're very high, they're ridiculous, they're unfair. So, I mean, my advice, if they're listening, my advice to any mobile phone company is just say no, because people will rush to you if any of the others decide to add them.
So the big picture here, Jasmine, if I'm not wrong, is that while European EU regulations, if you like, help to get rid of roaming charges, what will really permanently keep roaming charges away from consumers is competition, is the market, is commercial pressure from rivals, if you like. And these big mobile phone companies, they've set up their networks, they've made all their sunk costs, haven't they? Now it's just gravy. It's gravy. And it strikes me that roaming charges, of course Vodafone disagree, EE, GIF, all the rest of them who are thinking about making these changes, for a lot of them, this is just extra profit, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, I don't know about you, but I've seen mobile phone, just the general monthly prices are going up. So they're already charging us extra there. We're already, again, this is part of the squeeze, we're seeing prices of everything going up. Certainly mobile phone charges. And I'm saying to readers, switch, because there are opportunities. And so I think, as you say, it is competition. And we've seen this with banks as well. More and more people are moving, particularly if they're business people and going abroad a lot, they're moving to Monzo, Starling, because the foreign exchange is really good. Similarly, business people who are abroad a lot and people who just like to go abroad for a holiday, they're going to switch. They absolutely are.
It's the last thing you want when you've shelled out on a family holiday, the flights, the accommodation, spending money, a few new clothes for parents and kids. The last thing you want is a couple of £100 extra bill because one of your kids has been, texting their mate while on the beach. And it strikes me, Jasmine, that this is a kind of trend in capitalism. You get a new industry and you get a small number of players at beginning, and then you get massive competition and charges go down for ordinary people. But then as the industry matures, it reconsolidates. The big people start taking out the smaller people, start buying them out, and then they get more price control again. It strikes me that that's where we are in this now mature mobile phone market. Collaboration, if you like. I wouldn't use the word collusion because that would be illegal, but collaboration is starting to take the place of competition.
Well, I think so. And, as you're talking, I'm thinking again, as Angela Knight said, she was talking about big state coming in. We may need that because that's essentially what's happened in the EU.
Trust busting.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, maybe government has to come in and go, that's the level, you do not go above that. So, we either have the competition or, as you say, if the competition doesn't work, if there is a little bit of chatting behind the scenes, then, we're going to have to government is going to have to come in and go, enough.
Again, as with the energy price cap, we're going to keep a close eye on this here on The Money in the weeks and months to go forward. Now, we did want to speak to Vodafone, of course. They're welcome to come on the show. Come and have a chat. I'm a nice guy. Ask around. But they weren't available. But a Vodafone spokesman did say in a statement, we have pushed back the introduction of roaming charges to the end of January, giving time for further testing to ensure the best possible experience for customers purchasing our £1 per day bundles. Until then, customers will continue to be able to roam without charges, said Vodafone. And once again, dear Vodafone, the invitation to appear here on The Money and talk to me is always there. The door is open. I want to bring in a few of your emails, as so many of you have got in touch about soaring energy costs, a veritable tsunami of texts and messages. Jamie says, I'm a disabled pensioner. My wife and my energy tariff doesn't change. The energy tariff of my wife and I doesn't change till April, but we are already paying £140 a month. And in fuel poverty, wow, 140 times 12, big money. Do we have to take out equity on the house to afford to stay alive? Liz says the UK needs to frack around the country and drill in the North Sea and get back to being self-sufficient. We have the natural resources, let's use them. This is urgent. Get on with it. Alex says, we can only fix soaring energy bills by investing in nuclear power, an issue we've discussed many times here on The Money, and gas storage, we've discussed that too, and that will give us our base load. That's a constant supply of energy, even when the wind doesn't blow. This isn't much use for the immediate problem, though, as it's a long-term investment plan. It certainly is. And Derek contacted us. How on earth are pensioners going to pay for this massive rise in fuel prices? Countless people are on the lowest state pension. As a result, they are £42 a week worse off than those born after a certain date. That is government discrimination on a grand scale. And Mark, it's obvious, says Mark, we're all being forced to board the green agenda train, whether we like it or not. Keep your emails coming. Tell us what you want to be discussed here on The Money. We learn so much from your messages. It's always good to hear from you. Time now for my regular feature, which celebrates some of the UK's most successful and interesting new companies, asking them how and why they got up and running. Here it is. It's Startup Britain. Now, modern romance looks very different than it did back when I was a lad. Believe it or not, no less than a quarter of new relationships now start online, we're told. When the pandemic hit almost 2 years ago, it became harder for people to meet in person. So dating websites flourished as people connected romantically over the internet. But there's a darker side to this industry. Online dating-related crimes have risen fourfold over the past 5 years. And shockingly, there are no legal standards across the industry, meaning anyone can create a fake profile. That's why, only last month, Elaine Parker launched Safer Date, the first and she believes only dating website that requires ID checks for every sign-up. And that, says Elaine, makes it the safest online dating platform in the world. Here to tell us more, it's Elaine Parker. Elaine, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Very nice to see you on The Money. Tell us why you set up this company, because I think it stemmed partly from personal experience.
Absolutely, yes. Before my own personal experience, I honestly thought that there was a legal standard and that these people had to keep you safe.
I'm amazed there isn't.
No, I thought it was just a given and, you know, there's an online dating association. I thought, therefore, people had to abide by this, but I was very, very wrong. And the person that I met online, who ended up moving in with myself and my son, seemed great at first, turned very, 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 very dark. He put me through months of domestic abuse, through sexual assault, through rape, through stalking, harassment. And once I got the police involved, I realised he actually had a long history of domestic abuse. But he was using dating sites freely to find his victims online. I wasn't his first and I wasn't his last either. He's now in prison for what he did to me, but there's nothing at all to stop him from going back to online dating when he gets out of prison, even though he's on the sex offenders register for life. And it's scary, it's ludicrous, so I want to change it. I want to revolutionise it and make it safer for people.
Well, I'm so sorry that you and your son had to go through that, and good on you. I think a lot of people watching this, listening to this, will be cheering inwardly. Good on you for responding by setting up a business and trying to do something about it. It strikes me, Elaine, this is a case we often see these days where government regulation, policy just isn't keeping up with the technology and the lifestyles we're now living. But to have dating sites where there are no checks of the people online, that seems to me mad.
No, I mean, the dating industry in the UK alone totaled £230 million last year. It's a huge amount. But there are no ID checks on other dating sites. There are no criminal background checks. And, you know, the criminal background check is the real big thing.
Yeah.
And we are the only dating app in the entire world that do that, which I'm so proud to say.
Yeah.
You know, last year alone in
Talk
the UK...
about gap in the market.
Well, I know. No one else is
huge.
doing this.
Yeah.
People say, well, why isn't anybody else doing this? It's not an easy thing to do. And it does cost us money to do so. But what price do you put on safety?
Just before we start talking a little bit more about your business, because it's just up and running, but you've done all, you know, it's a lot of admin, a lot of rigmarole to set up a business, as well as a sort of psychological step of giving up your day job and going for it, as it were. But let's just talk a little bit about the scale of online dating. I mean, it's not something I do, but, and I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners don't either, but many of them do, don't they? What is the scale and how does the UK rate internationally? Are we particularly romantic online? Do we have lots of online dating in this country compared to our neighbours?
Absolutely. I mean, it's big across in the States. It's big worldwide, really. But in the UK, like I just mentioned, you know, £230 million is what the dating industry turned over in last year alone.
That's proper money.
It's a phenomenal amount. But because dating is rising, online dating is rising, lockdowns sort of push people to date more online. But the fraudulent activity on dating sites, because there's none of these checks that we do, has risen by 40% last year as well, and that totaled 74 million. So UK people are getting duped out of their life savings on these online dating sites, and it's a huge problem that needs to be tackled now.
Is this the first business you've started, Elaine, may I ask? Are you characteristically an entrepreneurial person, or is this largely because of sort of shock, anger, motivation that's driven you to take this huge step in your life?
Yeah, I started my own business back in 2017 after I was made redundant, which was predominantly web development. That was where I saw myself being, till retirement really. But then this experience happened that opened my eyes to things that I'd never seen before. And I just feel so passionate about revolutionising the dating industry and just making it safer for everyone, because it's so wrong that the criminals are allowed to get on these sites and there's no comeback.
And how difficult was it to set up the business? Because anyone that signs up, you then have to guarantee users who want to meet people online that the people who you are offering up, as it were, the people using your platform are criminal data check, background check, insolvency check, whether they've been disqualified from companies, all the rest of it. How difficult is it to collate all that information systematically on an increasingly large number of people? How difficult is it logistically, administratively, legally to do that?
I mean, at first when I set about this, it seemed like it was going to be a very, very difficult task to do. But I'm
daunted, and I'm a sort of trained, very experienced journalist.
I did a lot of research. I set up a WordPress website first, just to test the market. And I mean, the response we had was just
This is a very basic website.
Just there's nothing like this out there. I had to test the market. And the response we've had has just been absolutely phenomenal. We've just gone through an investment round and raised a six-figure sum, and the app actually launched in December. That's running now. We're getting hundreds of downloads every day. It's just, it's quite exciting, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing where it goes. In terms of logistics, we work with the intelligence agency, which is a company called IYA Global, and they do these checks for us. They're a brilliant group of people to work with. A lot of them are ex-police, ex-detectives. And
so they know their way around national databases.
Absolutely.
They know what you can do legally. And they know what would be illegal, not that you would do it, but they know where the line is. Because some people may say if they sign up to, to use your site and you're checking them out, they may feel this is a huge invasion of my privacy. What would you say to that?
We're absolutely very upfront about the checks that we do. Everything that we have on our website, on the app, everything says that you must go through an ID check and you must go through a thorough criminal background check. If you don't pass those, you won't get on there. We don't share data with anybody else. Other dating sites, these free dating sites, I never actually thought before about how they make their money. Looking into it, they actually sell your data to make money. So they will sell all of this data to the likes of gambling sites and other dating sites. We don't do any of that. We keep your data safe. We do everything above board. We are very, very transparent about our processes, and your data is completely safe. The other thing as well, if people fail these background checks, we actually, as a business, don't see what that is. We've got some set criteria. So if there's something like sexual assaults...
It's just a blanket no. You don't tell them the criteria under which they failed.
We've got like a traffic light system internally. So there's certain things that are an absolute no. That would be, if they've been convicted of rape, things like that, sex offenders register. And if that's the case, they're on the red list. But we, as a business, won't find out from the intelligence agency what that is, because we don't need to know.
You just get the nod, as it were, or
fully
the not nod. Whatever the opposite of the nod is. Now, I've got 3 kids, and they're much more social media savvy than me, obviously. And when they text me or WhatsApp me sometimes during the day, and because I'm a busy guy, I don't respond to them and say, "Oh, Dad, you've ghosted me again." This idea of ghosting, that's a phrase that quite a lot of people won't know, but it's basically when people don't reply and you basically give people the cold shoulder online. You have a way of tackling that, don't you?
Yes, we do. We've introduced a graceful goodbye feature. So rather than just ignoring people, we've got some sort of responses that you can choose from that closes the conversation down politely. To encourage people to actually use this and stop
just to try and keep it civil. It's been nice talking to you. I don't think it's going to work out. Good luck in your search, etc., etc.
And we also, a lot of when you sort of speak to people, all the research we've done, men tend to find that they get ghosted quite a lot. Women tend to find they get bombarded by messages. Oh, yeah. But women tend to find they get bombarded by unwanted messages. So we also tackle that. So if you haven't matched with somebody, you can only actually send one message request.
So you can't badger people. You can't press them. Very interesting.
No, so we've took that out as well.
Finally, Elaine, you've obviously you're really onto something here. It strikes me objectively. You've seen a huge gap in the market. You're raising money. You're clearly very, very driven to do this. You're catching national media attention now.
Yeah.
How has this changed the way people in your life think of you, do you think? How has it changed the way you think about yourself?
I think personally, I don't actually have a lot of confidence in myself, and anybody who knows me looking at this will be nodding along right now.
You could have fooled me.
Yeah, well, I honestly don't, but I'm just so passionate and driven about doing this. I think, everybody's telling us they're so proud of us, and, they just want this to succeed because they know that what I'm doing is for the greater good, to protect people.
Very, very interesting. So what's the vision? Because surely, if you're successful doing this, the existing massive dating apps can just copy your model. You can't patent the idea of checking someone out, can you?
No, but it's not as easy as just doing that. There are barriers to do so. The intelligence agency that we work with, we've got an exclusivity agreement with them, and nobody else has access to the same information.
Can he?
Yes.
Well, good luck to you. Elaine Parker, it's been really interesting to talk to you. We'll keep an eye on your business. Stay in touch with us, and I hope it goes very, very well. Very, very interesting indeed. Elaine Parker there, who set up her company, Safer Date, to try and make the huge online dating industry much safer. You've been watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be back for more economics, business and consumer news at 1 p.m. tomorrow. It's 1:55. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On the Money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. A cold one out there today. A wet day for most as well. Rain for the majority, but there is some snow falling over the hills across northern England and Scotland, courtesy of a deep area of low pressure just to the west of Iceland. These weather fronts bringing the moisture, hitting the cold air. It was a frosty start for most of us this morning. And as that wet weather hits the cold air, we will see a continued risk of snow, certainly for the next few hours over the higher routes through the Pennines, across the southern uplands and into the mountains of Scotland further north. There will be some snow on the higher routes, so say the A9, for example. Not lasting too long, but not very pleasant travelling out there. A wet day for most, but staying largely dry across East Anglia and the southeast until this evening. Feeling pretty cold out there, even though later on temperatures could get up to 8 or 9 across the southwest. The rain reaches East Anglia and the southeast before scooting away through the evening, and then showers come into the northwest. Again, mostly rain at low levels, but some heavy snow is likely over relatively small hills across the northwestern quarter of the UK, and likely to be quite icy as well as temperatures drop close to freezing in towns and cities, a little below in rural areas. But still a potential for heavy snow showers and ice across western Scotland, western parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England in the morning. So just something to be aware of. Some travel disruption certainly possible here. Rain mostly across Wales and southwest England, but some snow mixed in here for a time as well, again chiefly over the hills. Some sunny spells on Friday, but temperatures back closer to just 3 or 4 Celsius for most of us and feeling colder with the wind, and certainly when the showers come along. Staying pretty showery during Friday evening, so again as temperatures drop sharply, we could see some icy conditions for a time, and then out west we've got another set of weather fronts which will bring most places a wet spell during Saturday with some strong winds. Sunday does look drier and brighter at this stage.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen.